Welcome to Oceanogaphic, everybody. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for being here. I would like to introduce Clarissa Carthauser, who's the author, and she was going to talk about the science of how she came to write the lyric meditation. And then Lori Kapowitz is the artist. They are going to both speak about how they collaborated on this project. And after Clarissa reads the book, we're going to have a little reception in the lobby. And then we'll go over to the Discovery Center if anybody's interested. There's a new Ocean Twilight Zone exhibit there in the lower level. So we'll have that open, and you can go over and check that out. And enjoy, have a good time. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Joanne. Thank you all for being here. So I'm going to start with the science side and introducing myself and my research a little bit. So I'm originally from Germany, which is marked on the map on the right, and I came here 3 years ago and started to study marine snow. So how did that happen? When I was maybe 8 to 10 years old, I started to be really interested in rainforests. And one of my childhood heroes was Jane Goodall, and she did a lot of research on chimpanzee in the rainforest, and my goal was to do the same, so I was going to go to the rainforest and observe. And to prepare for that, I read a lot of books about the rainforest, one of which compared rainforests to coral reefs and described how coral reefs are also very diverse ecosystems, interconnected, and I was fascinated by that. And that was the first time I got interested in the ocean. Later on, I went to high school and I learned about how the ocean actually balances our climate and how it captures carbon dioxide and thereby helps us by stopping climate change a little bit. And so I felt like studying the ocean is something that is valuable for the future. And what was the tropical rainforest to Jane Goodall at her time is the ocean to us now. It's a big unknown, it's a big ecosystem that we depend on. And so I decided to study oceanography. I moved to Kiel, which is in northern Germany. It is known for being near the ocean. Also, it is known for its Christmas chemistry lectures, which tend to be quite explosive. And I spent 6 years in Kiel doing my bachelor's and my master's. One of the things I discovered during my master's were hydrothermal vent ecosystems. And I learned about bacteria that are able to capture carbon dioxide and turn it into biomass. So they do not feed on other organisms, but they live down there in the darkness using chemical energy. And they are called chemoautotrophs. And I was really interested in those bacteria, and I Googled who works with these bacteria. And I found Stefan Sievert in Woods Hole. And so I emailed Stefan Sievert and asked if I can come as a guest student. That was in 2015. So I was here for 10 weeks in total. And then I went back to Germany and continued my studies. I really liked bacteria, so I decided to do my PhD at the Max Planck Institute for Marine Microbiology, which is in Bremen. Bremen is known for this beautiful statue of 4 animals, musicians. And it is also known for marine science. And during my PhD, I worked with marine snow a bit more. And eventually, afterwards, I got back in touch with Stefan, who suggested I apply here for the Hui postdoc scholarship. And we did that together, and we also involved Ed, who's actually here, to study bacteria and marine snow. And this is how I came back. So what is marine snow? To introduce you to marine snow, I'm going to speak about an ecosystem that most of us are a bit more familiar with, which is the garden. Many of us may have a garden and grow beautiful flowers in it, and the flowers capture carbon dioxide, using sunlight as their energy source, and turn it into biomass. When the flowers die, you might put them onto the compost pile, where they are degraded and fed upon by animals, such as this worm, and by microorganisms. And these organisms, when they feed on the dying flowers, they release some of the carbon dioxide that was captured in the flowers back into the air. And what remains are some nutrients and some soil. Just like the flowers in the garden, organisms live near the ocean surface and capture carbon dioxide using sunlight as their energy source. So these organisms you can imagine like tiny little plants. And they concentrate near the ocean surface where they have nutrients and sunlight. When these organisms die, they do not end up on the compost pile in your garden, but they also stick together, forming tiny little aggregates. And that is what we call marine snow. When you swim in the ocean using glasses, you may sometimes see marine snow, the tiny little flakes floating around in front of you. And marine snow is really just like a tiny compost pile. It is a big piece of organic matter from the perspective of microorganisms. And while it sinks, it provides a source of nourishment to the marine animals and microbes. And the ocean, unlike the garden, is structured vertically. So we have the top 200 meters, which are penetrated by sunlight, so that new material can be formed. And the remaining bigger part of the ocean is completely dark, and so all these animals beneath the surface rely on the marine snow to carry the nutrition to them. And so marine snow is essential in sustaining all the ecosystems further down in the water column. Another important thing that marine snow does is that it carries carbon that was captured near the surface into the ocean's depth. And while some of that carbon is released again when the animals feed upon it and breathe, some of it may eventually reach the seafloor where it is stored on timescales of millennia. And that way, the ocean contributes to capturing and storing carbon and taking away carbon dioxide, of which we currently emit way too much. And so this is why marine snow is essential in the ocean ecosystem and for our planet's climate. And as you can imagine, while the marine snow sinks, it experiences a lot of different changes. It may break apart, it may stick back together, it may be fed upon by an animal. The animal may produce a fecal pellet that sinks faster, dissolves, becomes part again of the marine snow pool. And this is why each marine snowflake is unique, just like a snowflake. And I think marine snow is quite fascinating, and I like to study it. And I also think that it is quite beautiful, and this is why I'm excited to collaborate with Laurie and produce artwork that is inspired by marine snow. And Laurie is next going to introduce you a bit more to the art side of our project.
I'm Laurie Kaplowitz, and I created the paintings for the book Marine Snow. I'm a classically trained painter with a BFA and an MFA in painting from Boston University and American University. I taught painting and drawing for 34 years at UMass Dartmouth and the College of Visual and Performing Arts. And I retired in 2012 as a Chancellor Professor Emerita. My work has been exhibited and collected both nationally and internationally. In my studio practice for the past number of years, I collect organic matter, such as flowers and leaves and bark, and dead and discarded bird feathers sometimes, and butterfly wings. I do not kill animals. In my studio, I press them flat to dry them, and once they're dried, I collage them into my paintings and drawings. And this is a typical drawing that I've done in the past number of years, where I'm using the technique that I just described. Clarissa's research appealed to me for the Synergy project, which I'll talk about more a little later, because she studies organic matter from the ocean. So I thought we would be able to collaborate on a project. I could interpret her research and express it visually using this particular technique. The natural processes that she studies, such as photosynthesis and carbon sequestration, can be fairly abstract and not particularly visual. So when we decided to collaborate, we decided to personify Maureen's snow and make her identity that of a woman who has a life cycle and is also subject to the growth and degeneration processes that are found in the natural world. And in fact, this is a drawing that I brought with me when Clarissa and I met for the first time. I had some ideas already about what I thought was possible, and there was something in this piece that I thought I could talk about, and we could maybe come up with something. We felt that a book would be the perfect vehicle to convey to the general public the important information of her research. And we hope ultimately that the paintings that I created will stick in your mind, and the lyricism of the words that she wrote will resonate with you. And through the words and the pictures, you'll remember how important our oceans are in keeping the planet healthy. That's photograph of, if you want to ask me questions during our Q&A about specific things about this technique, I'll be more than happy to talk about it. But that's a photograph of me applying the adhesive that I use on a Queen Anne's lace flower to create this particular painting. About the Synergy project, which I referred to, is a joint venture sponsored by HUI and right now the Art League of Rhode Island. And it brings together artists and scientists to collaborate and to create art and exhibit art that's made from the scientists' research. And the hope is that the scientific knowledge in an art form can reach a fairly large and general public and inspire and inform audiences.
So yeah, thank you. So I enjoyed working on this project with Laurie because I feel like it gives my research another dimension. There is a limit to how much of the beautiful and fascinating side of science you can convey in a scientific paper, and with the artwork, there is no limit.
I forgot that you were going to read it.
Oh yeah, I'm going to read it now. Okay, so this is the result of our collaboration, Marine Snow. Marine snow was born of 1,000 parents. Algae, shedding their sugars willingly, living in abundance. Diatoms, dying, not knowing that their tiny dead shells would turn into new life. Bacteria, feeding on debris, releasing fresh nutrients for a new beginning. The first thing that Marine Snow felt when she woke up to life was movement. She was falling, away from the sunlit ocean surface, sinking deeper and deeper through the increasingly dark water masses. What was the purpose of this? Why did she keep existing and falling? Before she could make any sense of her own identity, Marine Snow was ripped apart. Marine Snow, and Marine Snow were now all sinking. Marine Snow was fastest, and soon she could no longer see what also used to be her. Suddenly, marine snow bumped into something colorful and beautifully diverse. Marine snow. Marine snow, marine snow, and marine snow merged into one more colorful and more diverse marine snow. United, they started to sink even faster. On the side of her path, hungry animals were begging for food, and marine snow was there to nourish them. While she shrank smaller again and broke into tiny little marine snowflakes, the lucky animals filled their bellies, and even some small bacteria joined the feast. Thanks to the sloppy table manners of the animals, marine snow was not consumed entirely. And so she kept sinking and changing, again and again, accepting new parts and releasing what used to be her. Wait for me. Marine snow heard a former part of herself call, and she saw pieces of herself, though no longer herself, compressed and discarded by the animals, sinking faster than before, catching up and uniting with her again. Sinking into the very deep parts of the ocean, marine snow encountered less and less marine snow. She was a rare survivor. And ultimately, she touched down gently on the soft seafloor. Resting on the seafloor, she fell asleep. Marine snow might never know how much balance she gives to our planet by resting on the seafloor. Keeping carbon that was captured by the busy sea surface creatures stored safely within her body. Protecting all of us by simply existing and being marine snow. Thank you all for being here. We would like to thank Hui and the Synergy Project of Artlead Rhode Island who organized this. And I would like to thank the Twilight Zone Project, which I'm part of and which also funded the reception we will be having outside. And if you're interested in Laurie's webpage or my webpage, you can use the top QR codes. And the bottom left contains the Synergy Project. They're going to start a new round, so if you're a scientist or an artist and you want to join, you can also look at that. And finally, the Twilight Zone Project, which is all about the deeper, darker parts of the water column. And now we have some time to answer questions. Oh, I think if somebody wants the QR codes, I can leave them up for a moment. There's a question in the back.
It's not a question, but I want to tell you guys, this is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Wonderful job. The artists, congratulations, you did a great job. And I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you travel to schools to do this for younger generation? Because I'm from a school of storytelling. The way in which you are telling the story to make me understand and how science works actually is so capturing that I would love to see travel to school, especially elementary school, to get them more interested at a younger age. It's
So,
amazing.
I haven't focused so much on schools yet, but we can talk about this if you like.
Yes.
Yeah.
How do you look at the book?
Yeah, and I mean, we will be around for the reception, and also, yeah, at the Discovery Center, and you can find the book in the shop as well. Yeah, another question?
Yeah, thank you, Clarissa and Laurie, for doing this. This is amazing. So I echo what you were saying. Is it just coincidence that the woman in the last, or the face in the last drawing looks like you, Clarissa? Or is that?
That's a question to Laurie, I
Is that my
guess.
interpretation?
That's your interpretation,
Okay.
but it's a good interpretation. Could you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
it's a fairly anonymous, or I tried to make the section of the face that represents the woman fairly anonymous. But if you see Clarissa, that's okay.
Yeah. Well done.
Thank you. Another question?
Could you speak to the collaboration itself? Like, did you guys meet in your studio? Did you go to the lab? You know, what was the sort of catalyst to go in the visual direction of a female and floral elements versus the elements that are floating in the ocean?
Do you want to?
Yeah, I can start and you can add on, maybe. So, in the Synergy project, we had something like a speed dating where scientists and artists met on Zoom and could visit each other. And as scientists, we prepared a few visual things from our research. So people brought figures, or I brought like things I had made for other presentations, schematics. And then we talked with the artists and checked whose art and science were a good match. And Laurie was from the beginning on, had the idea of working on a book. And I liked that concept of putting together like a story. And we first met on Zoom, and then Laurie came to visit here, and I showed her around Hui, and I also went to Boston to her studio and learned more about her work there. And then it was just a back and forth, so I drafted the text, and we both went through the text and the paintings, so yeah, it all came together.
I just wanted to say that the collaboration part is, I think, really important, and it's worth it to focus on. This is actually my third collaboration in the Synergy project, and I think my best collaboration. And I think part of it has to do, of course, with how wonderful Clarissa is, but also the form of the book to me is 50-50. I actually did the previous collaboration project that I did was also a book, a very different kind of book. It was for younger readers maybe, and it was, I illustrated the research more than actually did the kind of work that I do in my studio. But this collaboration I felt was because the text is so artistic to begin with that it's really, it gave Clarissa a chance to kind of show that side of her, and then I could do my work. So I think it was a really good collaboration.
I agree, thanks. Yeah, Ken?
I was just going to say, my question was going to be about the woman, the image, and who that was, but my first comment is, I've been studying marine snow for 40 years. This is the most beautiful expression of that science that I've ever seen.
I'm going to flip on that.
And also the comparison to a garden, so maybe we can go a little more deeper on that. Because often you'll hear oceanographers talk about, adding nutrients to the ocean, or it's just like your garden, the plants and things. And were you kind of aware of that connection before you put the plants here, or
Well,
because there are many talks where we go in that direction, looking for a way to express?
I can tell you that I had some trepidation because this is I had been doing this work in my studio, and I was hoping that it would be okay just because there is a difference related to plants, and Clarissa kind of blew it off and said, yeah, of course. And
It's all organic matter.
I think she explained it beautifully, so after that I never worried about it. And the way I talk about it to my non-scientific friends when I have to describe marine snow, I say, it's all you know, it's all the stuff that blows into the ocean. So, yeah, so it was a little, I was a little bit hesitant in the beginning. I kept asking her, are you sure this is okay? Are you sure this is okay? I even gathered some, or we gathered some seaweed here one day, and I dried it, but it really smells. And that, after a while it didn't, but some of the land stuff that I dry, when it's dried, it smells so beautiful that I couldn't stand the sea stuff. So.
Wonderful.
Yeah, Mandy?
I just wondered, did the text come first, or the images, or vice versa, or did you bounce back and forth between the two?
So Laurie suggested the concept of marine snow being a person, and I saw her style, and then I wrote the text as a draft, and then it went back and forth.
Yeah, there was Clarissa, I have to say, handed me the text. It was full blown, and there were hardly any edits after she wrote it. One or two little things, and the painting that drawing that I referred to with the blue beetle. There was something about that partial face when after I did it, when I saw it, it said something to me that this could possibly be something. You know, sometimes it doesn't need to be more than that. You just kind of have a feeling about something. So that's what I presented, and you know, the rest is history.
Alison?
I'm really impressed with how you conveyed a science kind of like what Ken was saying, you know, scientific concept in a way that I think is accessible and appealing to to anybody, to non-scientists. And I'm wondering, like, was that hard for you to do? Is that like a different thing for you, or are you used to doing that? Because scientists often are not that great at doing that, and you did a really great job. So I'm just wondering, like, what that process was like for you. If it was new for you or not.
I think it's a process. So I've done it before. Like with all of my research, I want people to understand it, and I want it to be accessible. And I think that's usually possible because I understood it at some point too. So I just have to step back out of my thinking into more broader thinking. And I enjoy that. It reminds me of why I'm doing this and why it matters. But I think it takes me some iterations. So when I start doing something new, it fits in some way into the old, usually. If it's something completely new, I'm thinking about new images. So during my PhD, I worked with bacteria and archaea in oxygen-minimum zones. So they were living without oxygen, and also how they interacted with marine snow. And so I always had the problem, where do I start? So do I start with the marine snow? Do I start with biosteno oxygen? Do I start with what do the bacteria like or not like? So that was quite complex. So this one is comparatively easy. I think all of them, as soon as I can draw it, as soon as it's visual, it also has a structure.
Yeah, but I have a question about Laurie's process. You are attaching the dried materials to the image that you created underneath, generally? No.
It varies. More often than not, I will start with the ground by applying a layer of collage material. And unfortunately, this is so sad. Then paint over it, wash it down, it so beautiful, but it, it looks like a bedspread or a curtain or something. It's not art, it's just a pretty pattern. So you have to kind of destroy it a little just to push it back. And then I might layer some big patch of paint over it, covering some of it, another gulp. And then maybe draw something on that. Can you click to the end papers? That would be a good.
This one? No.
The inside flap of the cover and the back. There. Okay, so I started with all the dried matter that you see. The Queen Anne's lace, the ferns, my favorite tree, the Marhinia tree, those leaves, people like that. And it was pretty, but it was just pretty. So I washed it over with like a milky white wash.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all acrylic. It has to be because the oil will ruin everything. The oil paint has a ruinous effect. And then the big white kind of plasters looking patch, that's molding paste. It has kind of like a gritty surface to it, so I just, plastered that on. And then I started drawing with some brown charcoal on top of it, the seahorse. Actually, I asked, I used the seahorse in my studio work because those of you who might know the Latin name for seahorses, hippocampus, and that is part of the brain where memory is. And in my studio work, I have a series of drawings that is kind of a made-up fossil record that I've been creating about life, forms of life. So I like the seahorse, and it's just a very beautiful little form. And I asked Clarissa if that would be okay to use, and she said yes. Like she said, it would be okay to use the nautilus shell at the end of the book as well. So that's kind of how, layer upon layer upon layer. If I didn't like the seahorse, I'd just kind of wash it out and paste something on, collage something on top of it. They're very multi-layered and sometimes not necessarily in anything you saw here, but in some work. There's just layers of beautifully dried flowers that are just buried in paint. It's a shame. It's the way it is.
Beautiful, thank you.
It is very appropriate for marine snow. Layers of organic matter sticking together. Yeah.
How long does it take for marine snow to go from the surface to the bottom of the ocean?
Oh, that's a good question. It also depends on what you define as the marine snow, because so you have the bit of organic matter that sticks together and it starts to sink at a certain velocity, maybe 50 meters per day. But on the way it breaks apart. Then you have more pieces of marine snow, and if they're smaller, they might sink more slowly. It can also aggregate and be ballasted with heavier things, and then it sinks faster. And then when the animals eat it and produce fecal pellets, those sink quite fast initially, but if they break apart, they also become nice and fluffy again. So I think it is very difficult to define, and this is what I'm trying to figure out with my research, a bit of how we can predict something so diverse. Overall, I would say the average sinks at about 100 meters per day. Yeah?
How long was the collaboration to make all the paintings?
1.5 years?
Was it that long?
think so, yeah.
It's not that the work was that long, but there was one show. We exhibited, the Synergy Project had an exhibit at URI in their graduate studies in oceanography building. They have a gallery. So that was a few months. So I would say I probably did my part of it, I don't know, 8 months or so.
I know it was really cold when you visited. I think it was January. Okay.
Wait, can I just
Yeah.
say one thing, and just to repeat what you said, if there are any scientists and or artists who are interested in the Synergy Project, please follow up on it, because I can't praise it enough, and there will be another. It's ongoing. It's not just something that began and ended. It's ongoing, and it's terrific. I have found it to be a terrific project to be involved in.
I agree. It gives you a new perspective of your research. If there are no more questions for now, we can go into the entry hall. There are 4 paintings exhibited. There is also my little lab incubator rotating somewhere happily. That's what I use to measure respiration in marine snow. And we will have some food and drinks.
I'm going to go over and open the Discovery Center. If anybody wants to come over and see the Ocean Twilight Zone exhibit, come to the lower level and the door will be open if you want to come over. It's right across the street.
And you can buy the marine snow book as well in the Discovery Center. Thank you, Mike.